Hello and welcome to Module 4, Effective Engagement and Crisis Response. This is the fourth module in the Community Cares Mental Health Response Training course. I'm Paul Horn and I'm your instructor for this module, as I have been in the first three and will be for the remainder of the whole course. If you've been with us for any or all of the first three modules, thanks for continuing on, and if you're just starting, we hope you'll continue on to explore any of the other courses, even if you go backwards and try out modules 3, 2, and 1, or if you continue on to the later ones. In this module, we will answer the following questions. What is the arousal cycle and why does it matter? How can we quickly assess a person in crisis and decide upon the best and most likely to be effective interventions? What are the quickest and best ways to establish rapport with a person in crisis? What are the most effective ways to set limits and express limitations to an irrational person? What are the best practices if you have to physically intervene, including when is the time when you actually do have to physically intervene? Well, how is the role of police different from other professionals during crisis? What are the safest physical intervention practices for non-police officers? In previous modules, we talked about homeostasis, but let's quickly review. What is it? When we are in a balanced state, both mentally and physiologically, we call that homeostasis. It's our natural physical and emotional state. It's a place our bodies and minds are always trying to return to. So think about ourselves like a guitar string. If we pull on a guitar string and let it go, it will vibrate for a moment, but will eventually find itself back to a long, straight line. And if we pull on it too hard, we get more and more resistance trying to pull it back to that line, and if we pull it too hard, it'll break. And our bodies and minds are similar. They're trying to cope with stress by returning back to this balanced, ready position that allows the body and mind to respond effectively to most stressors. But if we put too much stress on our systems, they can actually break down. We can't create this homeostatic state, which we mostly call calmness in day-to-day life, but we can facilitate a quicker return to homeostasis. In other words, there are things that we have learned that allow us to catalyze or expedite that process, even though it might take some time. I often refer to this with my students by saying we may not be able to make a person calm down quickly, but we can help them to calm down as quickly as possible. Often this means that we not only are going to help the person to do things that will bring them back down, but we also learn how to avoid the things that will accidentally re-escalate them. By the way, this homeostatic state we've spoken of is the state that you probably spend most of your time in. It's not really happiness per se, because happiness in and of itself is a form of arousal. And if we walked around all the time laughing our heads off for being ecstatic, that would be almost as tiring and stressful for our bodies and minds as being overly upset in some other way. So the next time somebody asks you how you're feeling, if you really want to be considered A, accurate, and B, odd, tell them you're homeostatic and ask them how they're feeling. Now, in your journal, take a moment and answer this question. What do you look like when you're in homeostasis? What does a calm you look like? And think about it from a behavioral perspective. In other words, imagine that you're somebody else describing how you would behave. What does it look like to your children, your spouse, and your coworkers when you're in a good, but not necessarily a great mood in your normal state? After we do that, we'll take a little bit further look at stress and crisis.